Welcome to Mickey, Marvel, and More, Disney news, commentary, and opinion. From theme parks to Thanos and from Skywalker to Skyliner, my family and I will discuss it all. So let's go!
Please stand clear of the doors. Por favor, manténganse alejado de las puertas.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Mickey, Marvel, and More. I'm your host, Mark, and I'm glad you're here. Whether you're a lifelong Disney fan, a die-hard Marvel enthusiast, or just someone who loves great stories, you've come to the right place. Every episode, we dive into the magic, the movies, the heroes, the history, and all the little details that make these worlds so much fun to explore. So grab your favorite drink, settle in, and get ready for another adventure as we take a closer look at today's topic. I hope you'll laugh, learn something new, and maybe even discover a few hidden gems along the way. Thanks for spending part of your day here with me. Let's jump right in. This is Mickey, Marvel, and More. Which is what I would say if I were AI. That's right, that whole intro was written by AI. It probably didn't 100% sound like something I would say, but it didn't do an awful job either. And that's what I have found that most of AI actually is. From not bad to just okay. So that got us thinking, could AI plan your next Walt Disney World trip? Well, that's exactly what we're going to find out in the family chat. We are going to plug in the information for our upcoming summer trip here in a couple of weeks and compare the AI plan to what our actual plan is. Who knows? Maybe if it does a great job, we can just remove ourselves completely from our own lives and just embrace our robot overlords. Quick, somebody call Sarah Connor and tell her to join us in the family chat for Judgment Day. But before we fully accept the future, how about a little news from in and around the Disneyverse?
To all who come to this happy place, welcome.
For our first story, we're traveling out to Anaheim, California. What began as a birthday trip to Disneyland Resort became an unforgettable surprise for an 8-year-old boy. On July 3rd, Andres Robles arrived at the resort with his parents, Alejandra and Jose Robles, expecting to celebrate his birthday with a day in the parks. Instead, the Arizona family found themselves at the center of a milestone celebration, with their son being named the honorary 1 billionth guest to visit Disneyland. He and his family helped Disney ambassadors unveil the updated population of the Disneyland sign to 1 billion people, and had a special visit with Mickey, Minnie, Donald, and Daisy. For those that don't know or have never been there, this is the sign that hangs on the Disneyland Railroad station facing outward from the park towards the ticket scanners. After the ceremony and the photos, the Robles family also received a VIP tour guide for the day, which included a tour of resort founder Walt Disney's private apartment. Man, that is so cool. They also got to ride on the newly opened Soarin' Across America attraction for the country's 250th anniversary and many other special experiences. The Disney Parks blog had this to say about the special moment. The Robles family visit is just one of the many lifelong memories that have been created here at Disneyland Resort. The blog then went on to say, from vacations and reunions to birthdays and more, generations of families and friends have come to Disneyland Resort to have fun together. I've got to say, if something like that ever happened to our family, I would truly be over the moon. I do have to make one comment though. Many times in the past when milestones like this were reached for other Disney parks, the family got lifetime passes for whichever location it was, be it Disneyland or Walt Disney World or Tokyo Disneyland, really just any of the parks. It's not really a big deal that they didn't give them lifetime passes. I just was a little surprised by that. However, it's still a super cool honor to be Disneyland's 1 billionth guest. Have any of you guys ever had anything super cool happen to you or your family while you're in a Disney theme park? It doesn't have to be anything major like this one. Just share one of your cool stories with us. Head on down to the show notes and tell us all about it at any one of our socials or our email address, Mickey, Marvel, and More, all one word, at gmail.com. We would love to hear your stories and share them here on our show. So write in and tell us about one of your super cool Disney theme park stories.
Will somebody get this big walking carpet out of my way?
A brand new Star Wars The Experience Museum exhibition was just announced, and it sounds super cool. Star Wars The Experience, A Journey Through the Galaxy is a world premiere exhibition opening at the Franklin Institute in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania on February 13th, 2027. It's all part of the Star Wars 50th anniversary celebration. Told through an extraordinary collection of more than 70 artifacts, many of them on view for the very first time from Lucasfilm. The exhibit invites you to take a closer look at the legendary screen-used pieces, including Darth Maul's lightsaber hilt and Darth Vader's menacing armor, as well as a selection of fan-favorite aliens, droids, and creatures, including Little Grogu from Star Wars The Mandalorian and Grogu, and the droid duo that started it all, R2-D2 and C-3PO. The exhibition also includes vehicles like a full-size speeder bike and original props from Andor, the critically acclaimed award-winning Disney Plus series. It's really just a celebration of all the amazing storytelling in the galaxy far, far away. This exhibit was created by the Franklin Institute in collaboration with MDSX, Lucasfilm, and Disney Consumer Products. Star Wars The Experience is an all-new exhibition spanning 18,000 square feet of visually rich, interconnected galleries featuring large, immersive moments, screen-used artifacts, and an RFID-powered experience for an interactive, personalized, and cinematic journey into the creative force behind Star Wars. Tickets will go on sale in November for Star Wars The Experience, which will run from February 13th to September 6th, 2027. However, we have saved the best news for last. Following the Philadelphia premiere, the exhibition will launch a 5-year North American tour. That means that the Star Wars Experience Museum exhibition will most likely land in a major American city somewhere near where you live. So hopefully we'll all get a chance to experience it. Mickey, Marvel, and More will keep you posted with all of the other dates and locations where this super cool Star Wars Museum exhibition will show up, so stick with us.
Introducing the most adventurous Walt Disney World theme park ever. Disney's Animal Kingdom. The imagination of Disney gone wild.
And finally, some more of our favorite kind of news here on Mickey, Marvel, and More, baby animal news. That's right, we're keeping the streak alive. Animals at Disney on Instagram announced that a new Waterbuck calf has been born at Disney's Animal Kingdom Lodge. Disney has not yet announced the little one's name or when they'll be out and about with the others. A waterbuck is a type of antelope with a really shaggy coat, and they can live up to 18 years. According to the African Wildlife Foundation, fewer than 200,000 of these animals are left, in part due to habitat loss. Be sure to check out the show notes for pictures of the baby calf, as well as a link to the Animals at Disney on Instagram post. And now I've got a quick follow-up to a Disney baby animal story we brought you a few episodes back. Cinnamon, the Ankole calf born earlier this spring, has made her debut on the Kilimanjaro Safari at Disney's Animal Kingdom. And in case you forgot, she was the first Ankole calf to be born in Walt Disney World in over 20 years. Disney shared that the calf just arrived on the safari and guests will be able to spot her while on the attraction. We previously reported that Cinnamon would be over at Disney's Animal Kingdom Lodge, so it appears that the animal team at Walt Disney World changed their minds. We'll have to keep an eye out for her when we head down to Walt Disney World in a couple of weeks for our summer trip. And if we're lucky enough to be able to snap a picture of her, we will be sure to share it here with you guys. We will also share any new info we get on the new baby Waterbuck calf that was just born as soon as we get it. There are so many new baby animals in the Disney theme parks these days. As always, Mickey, Marvel, and more will continue to bring you all of the big and tiny Disney animal news, so stay with us.
Now the magic of Disney comes to your computer and video game system with exciting products from Disney Interactive.
Okay, unless you've been living under a rock, you now know that AI is pretty much everywhere. And so many people are using it for so many different things. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it's complete garbage. But we wondered, could AI actually plan a Walt Disney World vacation? We've talked about in the past how complicated it can be, and we've talked about all of the ins and outs and all of the little bits and bobs you have to do to really plan things out. So, is AI capable? Can we put it in the hands of our robot overlords to tell us when to eat our Mickey waffles and how to pack our suitcases? Well, we're going to find out. I'm going to bring my non-AI wife, Laura, into the family chat, and we're going to talk about AI and can it plan a Walt Disney World vacation. Welcome.
Hi, happy to be here live and in person.
You know, that's just what an AI robot would say. Okay, so we've been planning Walt Disney World vacation since 1993. Does it really seem like it's been that long?
Sometimes, yes.
We've been planning Walt Disney World vacation since 93. And I feel like we've got a pretty good idea on what works and what doesn't, and a pretty good understanding on how it all fits together, even though it's gotten more and more complicated over the years. So I've decided to use ChatGPT because it is the AI program that I'm most familiar with. We've got a Walt Disney World summer vacation coming up in a couple of weeks. So I'm going to take that basic information, plug it into ChatGPT, and see how closely it comes to what we already have planned.
Yeah.
All right. So basically I put in that there are 4 of us going. 3 of us have annual passes. 1 does not. Our dates are August 1st through August 8th. We are Disney Vacation Club members, and we would like to have Skyliner access. I figured that was a pretty basic start without getting too down in the weeds and just see what it comes up with. What did ChatGPT have to say?
Yeah, so it started by sort of spitting the information back to you in summary, which I think is good, just to clarify that it understood your prompt correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And then it came up with 3 options that it titled Best DVC Resorts for Skyliner Access. The very first one that it came up with was Disney's Riviera Resort, which was the resort that we actually had already chosen for this trip.
Right.
It went on to give us pros and cons for that particular resort, as well as the other 2 recommendations. And I would agree with everything that it said about pros and cons. I think that was accurate. So then it went on and made recommendations about park tickets. And it correctly identified that 3 of us have annual passes, so only 1 of us needed to purchase park tickets. And then it said, depending on how many park days you want, you may want a 4-day ticket, a 5-day ticket, which is, I mean, a little bit obvious, but
Sure.
still, you know, good to let people know what the options are. It recommended a 7-day ticket with Park Hopper and then explained why it thought the Park Hopper option might be helpful. It then went on to give us a DVC booking strategy.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah. I suppose just common sense.
A little bit Google searchery.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah. But at the same time, if you don't really know where to start, it's good that they sort of lay it out for you. And it suggested checking the Riviera first. And then if that one wasn't available, then going to the second and third options that they had suggested. Then it went on and asked a few follow-up questions, which I thought were really good follow-up questions. It asked whether we were paying with DVC points or cash. It asked what size villa we needed. And then it asked if we had already booked anything or we were starting from scratch. And how did you answer those questions?
So yeah, I told the program that we were using DVC points and not cash. I said that we needed a studio size because we know a studio sleeps 5, but I wasn't sure if ChatGPT knew that. And I also told them that we were starting from scratch. And so it did a little recomputing, I suppose, and spit out some new information.
Yeah, it still recommended the Riviera as its number 1 recommendation for us, which again, we had already booked. It did give us some additional whys for why they thought Riviera was a good choice given the additional information. again, I would agree with all of that. And then it also gave us some additional information about the other two recommendations, which were Boardwalk Villas and Beach Club Villas. It then went on to give us sort of a plan C, which said if the Riviera wasn't available, then it said I'd expand the search in this order, and then said try Boardwalk Villas, try Beach Club Villas, try Old Key West Resort, try Saratoga Springs. And then said, yeah, I know two of those don't have Skyliner access, but they're usually available, which is exactly the experience that we've had with both Old Key West and Saratoga in the past.
Yeah, they are always the ones when we plan a last minute trip or we don't have a lot of time to plan. We know that those two are always going to be available. There's always room at Old Key West.
Right. So then it goes back and asks again about ticket advice, and then goes on and wants to talk about using DVC points and offers to check availability for us.
Mm-hmm.
We kind of ignored that question because it really wasn't helpful to look at the availability since we'd already booked it. But then you responded with some additional information on the ticketing question.
Yeah, it wanted to know, exactly how many days we really wanted to go to the parks. So I said that we wanted to go to the parks 6 days out of our trip.
So then it spits out a 6-day itinerary and gives a little bit of sort of general fluff information about
flavor
about why a park hopper might be helpful and how it kind of recommends focusing on one park per day, but then hopping in the evenings to get use of that park hopper option. And it gives us a suggested 6-day park itinerary for our 7-day trip. Interestingly enough, even though we said that we wanted 6 days of going to parks, it gave us an itinerary with only 5 days of parks.
Yeah, I found that a little interesting. Basically, it was like, take a resort day for yourself. You need to have some time off.
Yeah. In the middle of the trip, it planned a resort day, pool day, Disney Springs, or mini golf, which was really interesting since we had specifically said we wanted to go to the parks 6 days.
I think it was saying, I think you're doing too much.
I think so. Who knows? It probably knows better than we do.
In that same very calming voice.
That's right. So then it went on to say that it could help us estimate the DVC points needed for this trip, the cost of a 6-day ticket for our 4th guest, and then a strategy for booking lightning lanes and dining reservations. So it sort of said, hey, I can help you with all these other things. Then how did you respond?
Well, basically, I also put in some information that I hadn't said previously, and I said that we wanted to be able to park hop. So that would influence, perhaps, I thought, what tickets they suggested, and it may also alter the plan a little bit, and it did.
Yeah, so it gave us a little bit of a revised itinerary with separate morning and evening destinations. Also gave a couple of other suggestions, like, for example, it suggested on August 2nd that we start our morning in Magic Kingdom and then we hop to Epcot for dinner and fireworks.
Yeah.
Which I thought was interesting that it made those recommendations. It would also note in the itinerary when we should use the Skyliner to hop in between Studios and Epcot, which was interesting. And then it gave us a free day to choose our favorite park on our last park day on August 7th. Interestingly enough, though, the itinerary continued to put this day off in the middle of the itinerary.
I told you to take a rest.
Right. It was then interesting because it sort of gave us then some of their AI's reasoning for why it chose this particular itinerary for us, which was really interesting. And then goes on and sort of summarizes its recommendations for the resort, for our ticket options, and then goes on to say, if budget allows, you should consider purchasing lightning lanes on your Magic Kingdom and Hollywood Studios days, where it tends to provide the most value.
I will say that's interesting, though, because we do have somebody that's going with us that doesn't go very often, or actually, I don't think she's been since she was a baby, Parker's girlfriend, Isabel. And We had planned or kind of baked in our minds that we were going to get lightning lanes for Magic Kingdom and Hollywood Studios, which is interesting that it knew that those were the parks that needed it the most. So, I
Yeah.
mean, that's a little bit of Dr. Smartin thinking going on there.
Right. So then ChatGPT offers that it can build us a detailed itinerary and then goes on and gives us a bullet point of the things that it can add to our itinerary if we want it to. Then how did you respond?
Well, I wanted to give it just a little bit more information because we do have a DVC Moonlight Magic event planned for our trip. We were able to book some tickets to the DVC Moonlight Magic event at Typhoon Lagoon. But what I actually said was we have DVC Moonlight tickets for Tuesday, August 4th. And I didn't know whether it was going to fully understand what that was or not, but it did.
So anyway, it was interesting. It went on to say that it was a good idea to pair that Moonlight Magic event with a day where you didn't have park tickets because the DVC Moonlight Magic event includes park admission.
Right.
So you wouldn't have had to buy a park ticket for that day if that was the only thing you were doing that day.
But it's still attaching it to the forced rest day that it is going to shove down our throats no matter what.
Right, right. So then it goes on to, I always find it interesting that it kind of feels like it needs to bolster its recommendations. So it's why I like this plan was the next section where it then sort of gives you these are my reasons for why I chose the plan I did. And then it asks you a good follow-up question.
Right. It asked us where our Moonlight Magic event was. So I guess it was going to ask us that question to help more organize our travel plans. And so I told it our DVC Moonlight Magic event is at Typhoon Lagoon Water Park on that evening. And so it took that information and recomputed a little bit more.
Right. So then, interestingly enough, it says a 6-day park hopper ticket is still the right choice for your guest.
Right.
And continues to put in the day off in the middle of the trip,
Right.
which means that we would have only been using her ticket 5 days,
Right.
not 6 days, which was still a little bit of a head scratcher.
We are going to take that rest no matter what.
It was really interesting, though, in its why this works well, is that it did say you'll need a rest day before the Moonlight Magic late night event, so everyone has the energy for it, which is accurate.
That's true. But you kind of also need to plan your next morning since you're going to be up a lot later. And it doesn't really take that into consideration, I don't think.
Well, it does say after the water park event, you can return to your resort without having spent the day walking a theme park.
I mean, so that's true, I suppose.
And it does plan Animal Kingdom for us the next morning, which is generally speaking a little easier walk than
that's true.
Another park.
That's true.
So it then goes on to summarize some of the things that it's recommended, and it goes on to tell us how we can access the various theme parks from our resort. Then it goes on to say, because you'll have a late night at Typhoon Lagoon on Tuesday, I'd avoid making an early breakfast reservation on Wednesday. Instead, arrive at Animal Kingdom around mid-morning and then hop to Magic Kingdom in the late afternoon and evening. So then it asks us again, do you want me to build you a rope drop to fireworks touring plan? It keeps pushing this, keeps saying, do you want me to build it for you?
Right.
So then you gave some more information.
Yeah, I did because, it continued to give us that blank day where we are forced to take a rest. And so I flat out said, we want to visit a theme park on August 4th. We would also like lightning lane recommendations because I wanted to see how it handled plugging lightning lanes into this. And I gave it the information that one of our party does not really enjoy roller coasters. And so it decided to do a little more recomputing and it came up with...
Yeah, it came up with, again, another revised itinerary. It made an interesting comment that I'm not sure I agree with. It went on to say that because you'll be at the water park late on August 4th.
Right.
It would make August 4th an Epcot day because it's the least physically demanding of the 4 theme parks. has plenty for someone to do who doesn't enjoy roller coasters, and it's easy to leave in the afternoon to rest before heading to Typhoon Lagoon. I agree with the last two statements.
Sure.
I wouldn't say it's the least physically demanding, though, because certainly it is the most spread out of all of the parks and requires the most walking.
Yeah, I was a little confused by that because it does. If you go from one end of the park to the other, you can rack up so many miles on your steps. I mean,
Yeah.
historically, when we kind of go back and look at the information that our Apple Watches provide, the Epcot days are the days we walk the most.
Yeah.
So I was a little confused by that one.
Right. So then it gives us a new recommended park order. It's interesting that when it gives us these reconfigured things, it doesn't always include the information that it did before. So,
Yeah.
for example, the very first time that it gave us a suggested park itinerary, it suggested on day one that we do Magic Kingdom in the morning and then go to Epcot for dinner reservation and fireworks. Now it just says Magic Kingdom, Epcot. It
Yeah.
doesn't have that additional information, which I found
I
interesting.
wonder if it expects you to remember what it recommended before. I don't know.
It could be, and
Maybe.
it could also be that it's really focusing more on park order and not a more global touring plan.
Well, since we also, said we wanted to plug in lightning lanes, maybe it was focusing on that aspect of it this time. I don't know.
Right. So then it does go on to give us a lightning lane strategy, which was in line with what it had recommended before, which was recommending lightning lanes for Magic Kingdom and Hollywood Studios. And then saying that Epcot was nice to have, if you just have extra money you want to throw around.
Right.
And then goes on to say you don't really need it at Animal Kingdom, but you can if you really want to minimize waits. Kind of makes me wonder if Chat GPT isn't a little bit of a Disney shill.
It might be on the dole.
Right. It then goes on to give us some priorities
Yeah.
in the parks that it recommended. So it says, since one of your party has a person who doesn't enjoy roller coasters, I'd focus on attractions that everyone can enjoy. And then it gives us 5 lightning lane attractions that it would say is our highest priority. And I would agree with all 5 of these 100%. We
Yeah.
had actually been talking
Yes.
before we did this little Chat GPT experiment about some of the
Yep.
attractions that we might want to prioritize on lightning lane. And these were some of the ones that it recommended.
Yeah, because our date is just it's coming upon us to what we are at this point. We are 13 days away, and so at 7 days we're going to have to book all these things. And so we were kind of putting together a little plan. And I've got to tell you, this pretty much nails what we were going to do. So it seems to really have a good grasp of the ride information.
Yeah, so its number one recommendation was Peter Pan's Flight, which any Disney frequent traveler worth their salt knows
Right.
that it is one of the most difficult lightning lane reservations to get. It goes very quickly, is even more difficult, I would say, than some of the roller coasters.
It is.
It's harder to get Peter Pan than it is to get Space Mountain or Big Thunder Mountain. It's just a very hard ticket to get.
Yeah, so if you don't lightning lane that thing, you need to rope drop it because throughout the rest of the day, it doesn't seem to ebb and flow with the other rides.
Yeah.
It stays at a solid 90 minutes pretty much all day long and will sometimes get a little longer, but
Right.
it very rarely drops below that until close.
Right. So its priorities were Peter Pan's Flight, Tiana's Bayou Adventure, Haunted Mansion, Jungle Cruise, and Pirates of the Caribbean.
Which isn't too bad. And it did comment on Tiana's Bayou only if everyone wants to ride because it wasn't sure whether it should process that as a roller coaster or not.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting that it picked up on the fact that it might be too intense for somebody who doesn't like roller coasters, but it also understood that it is not a roller coaster. And so somebody who doesn't like roller coasters might be okay with a log flume ride.
I found it also interesting that it gave a lower priority to some attractions, and they made sense, the ones it gave it to, except for one, Buzz Lightyear, which is recently remodeled and reopened. I don't think it took that into consideration for this.
You think it should have given it a higher priority?
I mean, I think so, just because, it just reopened.
Yeah.
Or maybe it still doesn't think, based on its internet search, that it doesn't need to be priority. I don't know. I'm assuming it's going to be a little bit of a more a little bit of a longer wait. I don't know. Well, I guess we're going to have to find out here in a couple of weeks.
Right. Then it gave us show recommendations, which I thought was interesting. I would agree with most of these. But again, it was interesting that it specifically listed shows, which it included things like the fireworks and the parade.
Right. Not just like a little stage show. Interesting.
Yeah. So then it gave us the Hollywood Studios priorities, which again, I think is exactly what we had been talking about. It prioritized Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, Toy Story Mania, Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run, and Twilight Zone Tower of Terror. But then it says only if your group enjoys drop rides. So again, I think it sort of recognized this isn't quite a roller coaster, but it might be too intense for somebody who doesn't like roller coasters.
Right.
So I'm glad it sort of gave us that caveat on that one.
Yeah, and then it gave us, skip if someone dislikes thrills, and it threw rock and roller coaster in there because that literally has roller coaster in the title. Now, I'm pretty sure we are going to get lightning lanes for that because it's the Muppets and it's the brand new iteration of the ride, but it completely excluded it for the most part because it was a roller coaster, so it did well in that regard as well.
Right. It's interesting that none of these recommended any individual lightning lane purchases.
That is interesting.
For example, I would not consider Rise of the Resistance a roller coaster. It's not a roller coaster.
And we're gonna purchase individual lightning lanes for it.
Yeah, but I thought it was interesting that it just didn't cover that at all.
I wonder if we didn't narrow it down enough and say also include individual lightning lanes, but we wanted to leave this a little broad because if you don't know this information to begin with, how would you know to narrow down your search?
Right.
So we were trying to approach it from somebody who may be a DVC member, but doesn't process all of this information every single time. And some DVC people only go every other year.
Right.
And sometimes less than that, depending on how many points they got. So I guess that makes sense. But we really wanted to make sure we were generic enough and didn't have a ton of knowledge just to see what it would explain for us.
It then went on to give us some Epcot priorities and went ahead and threw in some lightning lane priorities just in case we had that extra money lying around that we wanted to spend
just burning a hole in your pocket
on a lightning lane. It then gave us a list of attractions. It says without big thrills, and then kind of gave us a skip for rides that it thought were definitely too intense, like Guardians of the Galaxy and Mission Space.
Which I think we had pretty much decided Guardians was going to be.
Right. Then it went on and gave us some priorities at Animal Kingdom and went ahead and threw in those lightning lane priority recommendations just in case we were going to go off script and get that.
Well, it also included Dinosaur, which has been closed for a while. However, it does say if still operating during your visit. So I'm not sure that it got the information that Dinosaur is now gone.
Right. Yeah. It's interesting. Then ChatGPT goes on because it's looking out for our human well-being and says, let's talk for a minute about midday breaks.
I thought this was an interesting thing that it threw in, though.
And so it gives us a general recommended schedule for every day of our trip. It suggests arriving at the park between 7:30 and 8, returning back to the resort for lunch, rest, and swimming between 12:30 and 3, heading back to the parks around 4, and then in the evening, enjoying rides, dinner, and nighttime entertainment.
It almost sounds like a pamphlet.
A little bit. And then it says for August 4th specifically, when we have our DVC Moonlight Magic Party, it says you need to leave by about 3 o'clock. So everyone can recharge before your Moonlight Magic Party.
I mean, I think that's good advice.
It then went on and made a really interesting recommendation that I would agree with. And it says, because one of the members of your party, this is their first trip to Walt Disney World, I would spend 2 full days at Magic Kingdom, and then goes on to explain why. Because it said it has the largest number of attractions, and it's the park where first-time visitors often feel they could have used another day.
Yeah, I thought that was a very valid point that it made. And I thought, you know what, for somebody who isn't thinking about that, it's a friendly reminder. So finally, I decided to plug in our dining information. And I asked, can you make some dining recommendations for our trip? We would like 3 table service restaurants. We will eat breakfast in our studio. We will eat quick service for the other meals, and we would like to use the DVC Welcome Home Weeks dining discount. We weren't sure whether that was going to be a curveball or not because that's something that's being offered during our trip.
Well, first of all, GPT validated our choices by saying, I love this dining plan. So you know you're on the right track already. But then it goes on and tells us exactly about the DVC Welcome Home Weeks, what the restrictions are, what restaurants it applies to, which meals it applies to, and goes on and makes 3 table service picks and gives its reasoning for why it suggested those, and even gave some suggested things to order there.
Yeah, like a little bit of color, a little bit of flavor.
Yeah. So it recommended the restaurant in Italy in Epcot, Trattoria El Forno. It recommended the Coral Reef restaurant in Epcot.
Eesh.
And recommended the Tusker House restaurant in Animal Kingdom. I'll say interesting choices.
Yeah, but I think it was really sticking to the Welcome Home Weeks discounts.
But interestingly enough, though, these are not the restaurants that we selected.
No, they are not.
To use Welcome Home Weeks discounts.
No, it didn't match what our choices were, but I think, we didn't give it a lot of narrowed down information. But again, I wanted to keep it pretty broad because, if we already know what we want, why would we be asking?
Right. I thought it was really interesting that it suggested Coral Reef restaurant.
Yeah.
Which even by the Yelp reviews that it listed in its recommendation was the lowest rated of all of the restaurants that it recommended. So I just found that those were interesting selections because there were definitely better rated restaurants that were available with the discount. And so I just thought it was an interesting choice.
Yeah, again, it's almost like it's a shill and it's trying to put butts in those seats in particular.
Yeah. It then went on to recommend its favorite quick service location.
Yeah, this was actually pretty good.
Which is spot on. I mean, I would agree with every single one of their recommendations. In Magic Kingdom, it was Columbia Harbor House and Pecos Bill.
Yeah.
In Epcot, it was Les Halles Boulangerie Patisserie, which is the little bistro pastry shop in France.
I'm glad you had to say that and not me.
The Regal Eagle Smokehouse
in
the American Pavilion in Epcot. At Hollywood Studios, Woody's Lunchbox, which gets rave reviews for its food, but it's all outdoor seating, and you know how we feel about that.
Well, yeah, and in August, no thank you.
Docking Bay 7, which is one of our faves in Hollywood Studios. And then in Animal Kingdom, it recommended Satuli Canteen, which it then went on to say that it was its #1 quick service recommendation in all of Walt Disney World.
It almost sounds like it's a shill.
Right. And then recommended Flame Tree Barbecue, which again has excellent food, but it is all outdoor seating, so probably not a priority for an August trip.
Yeah, but I will say that place at least has a lot of shade.
I think if we went back and asked it to sort of revise its recommendations to include only places with indoor seating, I wonder if it would know that. Probably it would, and would give us different recommendations.
Yeah, but I thought we had got down in the weeds enough to kind of just see, generically, okay, this is what our ideas are, and this is the discount we want. And I think it did a fairly good job.
It then went on to kind of give us a bonus recommendation, which I wasn't expecting.
Yep.
And it said, if you stay at Riviera, don't miss Primo Piatti. It says many Disney fans consider it one of the best resort quick service locations. And we have eaten at Primo Piatti, and I would agree. It's a very good quick service restaurant right there by the pool.
Yep, and I'm sure that we're going to eat there again here in a couple of weeks.
It then went on to say, if we were making these dining reservations for table service restaurants, it gave us an order. It said, try Tusker House first. Probably because it was the highest rated of the ones that it recommended.
Well, right. And they knew it's going to be the one that would possibly have the most competition for seats.
And then went on and sort of made an alternate recommendation for one of its suggestions, which I thought was interesting because I didn't know why it didn't just make this recommendation to begin with. But it says that it suggested swapping the Coral Reef for Garden Grill if your family enjoys meeting characters. And then goes on to say many families consider it one of the best values when the DVC discount is available. So it kind of left me scratching my head.
If it's the best value.
Yeah, why didn't you suggest that to begin with and then just make the caveat of if you don't like character dining, then do Coral Reef instead?
Right. Yeah, that was kind of interesting. However, I would swap the Coral Reef restaurant for a warm bologna sandwich out of a paper bag. So what do we think? Does AI have the ability to plan successfully a Walt Disney World vacation for first-timers or those that don't go very often?
I think yes. I was very surprised by how well it did with its recommendations. I felt like its commentary was, for the most part, spot on. It wasn't perfect. It did make a few subjective comments that I didn't necessarily agree with. And I think it got it wrong in a couple of spots. For example, when it kept trying to force that rest day on us when we had said multiple times we wanted to go to the parks 6 days.
I've got to say, I'm a little afraid now when we don't take that rest day. Are we going to get a message in our email from ChatGPT saying, "Why didn't you do what I told you to do?"
Yeah, I don't know.
What are you trying to do, Dave? So I think I agree. I think he did a fairly good job, and I don't think it's a bad tool, but that's just it. It's a tool. So many people right now are using ChatGPT and other programs to do everything.
Yeah.
From, like you have learned, people trying to do contracts and documents and
people use it for medical knowledge.
Yeah.
People ask it questions about life decisions. There are some people who are living their life by asking ChatGPT what they should do.
Well, and Zach talks about there are a lot of people where he and Sophie work that try to use this for information and documents at work. And he goes, it's not doing a good job.
Yeah.
So I guess we can recommend it for helping you plan a Walt Disney World vacation if you're a first timer or you don't go very often.
Yeah, I think I would definitely recommend it to someone. We certainly get lots of people that ask us for planning advice. And while that's fun, you also, unless you have a good half an hour to sit with someone, giving Disney World vacation planning advice isn't something you can just do in a couple of sentences.
Well, that's what most people think it's going to be.
That's right.
What should I do? And you're like, how much time do you have?
Right. But I was surprised by how well it did.
Yeah, I was too. So thanks so much for hanging out with me in the chat today.
Thank you.
See you real soon.
Thanks so much for joining us for another episode of Mickey, Marvel, and More. And a big thank you goes out to my very real non-AI wife, Laura, for sitting down in the family chat with me. Again, that's just what an AI chatbot would say. Thanks so much for helping me analyze the ability of AI to plan a Walt Disney World vacation. And I still very much think that AI is a useful tool for many applications, including Walt Disney World vacation planning. But it's just that, a tool. It shouldn't be the only thing you use to plan your entire life. I mean, come on, that's just what it wants you to do. After listening to this episode, make sure you head on down to the show notes to check out the pictures of the brand new baby Waterbuck, as well as links to all the stories we talked about. And while you're there in the show notes, why not head to any of our socials to comment on any of our stories or give your 2 cents about using AI to plan a Walt Disney World vacation. Hey, if you want to go old school, just use our email address, Mickey, Marvel, and More, all one word, @gmail.com. And if we read one of your comments on the show, you will become an official friend of the show with all of the non-existent rights and privileges that go along with that. As always, if you enjoyed this episode, my name is Mark, and this has been Mickey, Marvel, and More. If you didn't, my name is Steve, and I'd like to remind you that this podcast was 100% AI generated, except for the bad jokes. Those are mine. Or, as always, if you enjoyed this episode, my name is Mark, and this has been Mickey, Marvel, and More. If you didn't, my name is Steve, and I let AI write the whole thing. Next week, we're letting the toaster host. And finally, as always, if you enjoyed this episode, my name is Mark, and this has been Mickey, Marvel, and More. If you didn't, my name is Steve, and according to AI, your favorite Disney theme park is the parking lot. Obviously, those were all written by AI, and I've got to say, this may be my last episode I write myself. Hey, honey, I just lost my non-paying job. We'll see you next time.